What's up, everybody? Welcome to Psychoz World, where we talk video games, motorcycles, DIY, and more. I am your host, Psycho Quirk, but you can call me Psycho for short. I want to share with you some of the things that interest me in my world, because if you're here, then they most definitely interest you as well. So whether you're slaying noobs in a battle royale, or you got your knees in the breeze and laying down some miles on your bike, maybe you're working out your next DIY project that may or may not be going the way that you wanted it to, or anything else you're getting into in the moment, I'm here to hopefully make the next part of your day just a little bit more enjoyable. If you guys remember last week, I told you to remember the Alamo, so my question to you is, did you remember the Alamo? What's going on, everybody? How has your week been? Mine has been, well, technically the week hasn't started yet because I'm actually recording on a different day than I usually do. It's currently Sunday, and usually I record on Tuesdays, but recording a little bit early because, well, this is kind of a specialty episode. Like I mentioned last week, I had a buddy coming down to help move my mother, and we were going to talk a little bit about motorcycles, and he's actually here with me today. So if everybody could give a round of applause, if I had a little thing to actually play a round of applause, I would, we're going to call him the Great Carlito. Carlito, how are you doing? How are you? And I just said that twice, so go ahead and answer, please.
Oh, well, without further ado, yes, I'm doing good. I want to thank all the listeners at home, and hopefully some of them gave me some applause. God knows I need a hand in life. And also, we let the viewers know that we got your mom moved okay. 18 years of a whole life packed in a 2-bedroom apartment, moved into another 2-bedroom apartment.
Exactly. Dear God, I don't know. I'm sure you feel the same way I do, but extremely sore and tired. I actually, so for everybody that doesn't kind of know, even on the weekends, I wake up like ridiculously early.
Yeah, Mr. 7:30 over here.
Exactly. 7:30 right on the dot. So I actually slept in till about 10 o'clock. It was phenomenal. I guess this is what you guys always keep referring to as, comfort and sleeping. So I finally got some of that, so it's all well and good.
It's a good thing. I can always show you if you want to learn. I am a master at sleeping.
It's very true. He is very much a master of sleeping. He's practically wrote the book on it. So,
but hey, I think you want to talk about my other favorite thing to do besides sleeping.
I really do. And we were actually going to do it today. So I got a phone call, if you will. Actually, that's a lie. I got a Facebook message from my old riding club. The VP was like, hey, we're possibly going on a ride tomorrow. Now, mind you, this was yesterday that he hit me up. And we were going to go on a ride, but it was all weather pending. Well, unfortunately, I woke up this morning and the weather was, well, it was literally crying outside.
Because of good old weather in the Midwest, you know how it is. If you ever need to plan on something, it'll probably go wrong.
Exactly. So, unfortunately, the ride got canceled for the day due to the weather, but it's all right. We will get out there some other time. There's always more days to ride and all that good stuff.
And you can always just show up out of the blue on a Saturday morning when I'm at work and say, hey, I'm here. Let's go riding. Just ditch work for 5 hours.
I've literally done that before. Not the ditch work part, but I have shown up.
No, I ditched work. You were just
right.
Here.
That's right. Yes, you did. And I think I talked about that in a couple episodes ago. But anyway, moving forward. So like I said, this is kind of a semi-specialty episode, kind of similar to the way that it was when I had a chat, interview, whatever you want to call it, with Merlin about the beer brewing. This one's going to basically be strictly about motorcycle riding. I'm not going to talk about any video game news on this one or really anything else. So it's just going to be a specialty episode kind of talking about riding like I just stated. So without further ado, let's get into that. All right. Now, getting into things, I have a kind of the same thing that I did with Merlin. I got just a little list of questions here. It's probably just going to turn into a conversation. Fair warning, when we get together and start talking, it usually turns into a lot of ridiculousness. So you'll probably have a good laugh and have a lot of good information as well. So
if you can't keep up, don't worry about. Not many can.
Exactly. Very, very true.
We're basically like watching an episode of Community. You need to watch the other seasons before you get all the meta jokes.
And if you don't know what Community is, I highly recommend...
Well, you suck.
I highly recommend going and getting a Hulu free trial, and you can watch all 6 seasons of Community. We're still waiting for hashtag and a movie, but,
6 seasons and a movie.
We'll see what happens.
You missed your part, Abed.
I missed my part. I suck as an Abed. It's all right. I see myself more as a Leonard anyway.
All right. Yeah.
All right. Like I said, you never know what's gonna happen with the two of us. So, getting into things. Okay, so the introduction here, like he stated, writing. We're both into writing. Kind of got into writing roughly-ish around the same time. But, Carlito, I would like to know, how did you start writing and or what got you interested in writing?
Well, you dumbass. You actually, you helped awaken a childhood dream of mine. Just to start a little background history. Oh, well, I always wanted to ride. I always thought bikes were cool. I had some friends that rode. My old buddy Kyle, some other people, they rode. But all the people I knew that had become motorcycle riders had more experience when they were younger. When they were young, they did dirt bikes and, other things that I thought you basically had to develop a second sense for riding, that you would need that instinct for motorcycle riding. So when I became older and like in my 20s and I always wanted to ride, I never did because I'm like, oh, well, I never rode dirt bikes as a kid. I'd never been around it. I mean, my parents rode, both of them, both my mom and my dad. And I remember when I was young, they had bikes, but by the time I was older, they were too old to ride. They had long given up their bikes, and also because of their health, they couldn't ride. So long story short, I always wanted to be involved in motorcycles and motorcycle culture, but wasn't really around it. And so therefore, I thought, I better not try riding. It might be too dangerous. I don't want to, get killed or anything. However, you, out of the blue.
Completely out of the blue.
Yeah, completely. Like, I come down to hang out, and you start talking about a motorcycle you want to buy. And you had been doing research on it, and I'm not sure what even prompted that in your life. This would be a great opportunity to tell the audience if you hadn't already.
I think I actually did, but in case I didn't, for those who may not have listened to earlier episodes, I kind of did want to start riding at an earlier age. My brother was a big motorcycle rider, and even going back further, my cousin, he was a much older than me cousin, just the way, my family is. I come from a large family, and so therefore my older cousins literally they were old enough to literally be my father. But anyway,
you're the baby of the family.
I am the extreme baby. I couldn't be more of the baby of the family. So anyway, I had cousins who rode. I had my brother who rode, and so motorcycle and the culture, if you will, was kind of in my world, but not so prevalent. Prominent is the word I was looking for.
Like me, it didn't sound very accessible at the time.
Exactly, it really wasn't. But so anyway, then I had a couple friends get some bikes, and we talked about riding, and then of course, unfortunately, that never happened. But yeah, I just eventually kind of got in my head that I wanted to ride. So like with everything I do, I did way too much research for a normal human being on stuff, and found some stuff that I wanted to go and try, and then I went to go try it out, and that's pretty much what started everything.
You are the research king. I tell you what, I do as little research as possible just because I'm a very fly-by-night kind of nature, flying by the seat of my pants. You, however, are digging the shit and read everything you can about on the internet long before you even touch the subject.
I really do. I don't know why. I just kind of do. But that's neither here nor there. So, interesting question. I don't think I've even really asked you this in real life, but the story of your origins brought up a curious question. Do you by chance know what bikes your mom and or dad ever had, or, anything to their riding? Do you know what kind of bikes they had?
Yeah, well, my dad always called my mom a Yama Mama, and I know she rode a lot of Yamahas back in the day. In fact, that's kind of how they met. They met at kind of a biker bar hangout. My parents rode a lot of metrics because that was back in like the 70s. I think they were learning to ride in the late 60s. Harley wasn't doing too well. We all remember those good old AMF years. And plus, there's a lot more bikes in general back then. My dad's a huge Norton fan. Loved Nortons. I mean, he didn't own Norton when I was a kid and he had bikes. I think he had a Honda. Pretty decent size, like 750 or kind of around that size. A little smaller compared to Harley, but still a pretty big bike. And actually, it was funny because I remember when you got your bike, this is Segway, the first bike that you and me both got, because we got the same bike. I don't know if your audience knows that your bike was the Street 750 Harley Davidson, a bike I fell in love with because when I saw your bike, I'm like, now this right here it's a bike. It looked like a solid. To me, it was big because I was always around kind of those metric bikes run a little smaller than Harleys do. And so I was like, man, this is a bike. This is a Harley. It's decent size in my mind. It just had that new, that mean, that modern look to it, but it was also solid.
Little inside baseball. That was actually his. That was legitimately his actual real response. He came up to me and he was like, "You got a bike."
And the guy who actually delivered the bike to Matt from Harley Davidson's looking at like we're crazy, and I'm like, I'm fawning over this new bike he got. I'm like, oh man, I actually fell in love with the Street 750 the first time I saw his, and that pretty much solidified, or I guess reawoken my desire to be a rider. So was him getting a bike, and really Matt's journey to become a bike ride, because we're a not quite a year different in age. So the fact that he started riding a little later in life, it made me realize, and after then talking to other people about riding, that hey, even though I'm a little older, and like I was saying to begin with, I didn't have that experience or that second nature that I was worried about with like riding dirt bikes when you're a kid or stuff like that, hey, I can go ahead and become a rider. I can learn to ride, pick this up, develop the skill. And man, I'm just glad you got in bikes because you, my brother, got me into a new lifelong passion.
Very true, very true. And I think I have mentioned that my first was a Harley Street 750. If I hadn't, that's what it was. So that's what both of ours were, a Harley Street 750. I even think it was the same year. If not, mine was a 15. Was yours?
We're one different year in age. Our bikes are we're one different year in age ourselves, and our bikes are also one different year. You had the previous year model.
So yeah, I had the 16. That's right. I had the 15. You had the 16 because I remember looking at yours and seeing little differences about it.
Yeah, and then I turn around a year later and buy a 17. Well, and I think that's your second question.
Exactly. That went into the first question. That was the first bike you owned, which we just did. Now we're going into what bike are you riding now, which I just rudely interrupted. So go right ahead. And continue.
I was gonna say talk about a Segway, but we don't talk about that kind of crap here.
We don't have Segways here at Psychoz World.
No.
We just kind of talk.
You don't listen to that crap. There's many podcasts for you. You're not welcome here. Although, I'm sure any kind of listener was very welcomed by this man over here.
I love all of you. I just want to throw that out there. I love you all.
And just like he loves all... Well, let me answer the question real quick. So my first bike I bought in... it was summer? But yeah, it was a summer. June 4th, not July 4th, June 4th of... 2016, I bought a Street 750. 8 months later, I go to have my 1,000-mile tune-up. I think I was running about 100 miles over, so I was pushing 1,100. So I had to do my service, 1,000-mile service. If any of you bikers out there know, you have to have your 1,000-mile service. That's the biggest, most important service you can have on your bike, because it was running all the oils, and the engine was completely fresh when you first drove it, brand new off the line. So it was very important for you to then go in at 1,000 miles, have them drain out all the fluids, put in brand new fluids, and now the bike actually has been broken in. So I was going to my dealer, which is like an hour and a half away from where I live. Also, thanks to this guy, I literally bought the bike from the farthest Harley dealership away from where I live.
True story.
But it's all right. they know me up at Gales Harley Davidson. There's a plug for you, Gales. So I hope you remember me when you want to next overcharge me and steal or ship me on a service. But that's near here or there. But yeah, so I bought my bike from Gales Harley Davidson, and they've actually been nice about dropping it. Where I live is like an hour and a half away at least. So, in fact, back to the second bike I bought a year later. About 8 months later, in February, I'd go in to get my 1,000-mile service on my street. I'm driving through the parking lot, and someone ran up to my salesman. They're like, "Oh, hey, a biker just pulled in. He's got a cut on, but he's on this little bike. He's on one of the streets." I suffer from the same disease you do. We are fat men on little bikes.
Extremely large men on extremely little bikes.
And your audience doesn't know what I look like, but I've got long hair. I've got a beard. I had a cut on. I actually am a part of a riders group, the American Legion Riders. And so I have a cut on with a patch and all that. And I'm riding this little, well, you know, what especially in Harley terms is a little bike. And so I pull in, they're like, "Oh, hey, someone," so my salesman walks in to me and said, "Wow, someone said a biker on a little bike pulled up, and hey, what are you doing, man?" I'm like, "Oh, not much." Tell my salesman, "Hey, I'm just here to get my bike you sold me service." He's like, "Oh, okay, cool." Well, and this is how a bike salesman will start out. "Well, hey, while you're waiting, you want to come see the new line of bikes? You want to see this year's line? And let's just go sit on a few bikes." Warning to any of your members of the audience, if you ever go and sit on a bike, if they get your butt in a bike, you're probably riding away with a bike.
You're going to want it. You sit on it, and you're going to want it. So, fair warning.
So just realize, when you walk into a Harley dealership, yeah, your life and your credit may be changed forever.
All day, every day. That's kind of how, that's eerily similar to how I did it. Actually, I went in to go get, I want to say it was like a t-shirt or something. No, it wasn't I don't remember exactly why I went in, but I went in and I was talking to the sales rep because we had the same sales rep. So I went up to the salesperson and I was like, "Yeah, so," and I forget what the conversation was. And next thing you know, I'm sitting on a street bob and we were just, discussing things and, kind of shooting the shit a little bit. And then I leave, and then I come back for some other reason a different day, and he's literally like, "All right, so what color you want?" And I'm like, just joking. I'm like, I want the matte black, because my name is Matt, and I like the color black, so I'll take the matte black, please. Thank you very much.
And both your bikes have been matte black.
Both of my bikes have been matte black. Nobody needs gloss black. Who needs gloss black? That's for...
me, asshole.
Yeah, that's for that guy over there. He can have all the gloss black he wants to.
And both my bikes have also been gloss black.
True story. True story. Anyway, long story short, like I said, I think I've said this before. Anyway, long story short, so I got a street bob, and I didn't mean to. It was kind of an accident.
Well, now, fair to say, the street bob was the bike you always wanted. Now,
true story.
But I've never asked you. I'm going to turn tables on you for a second.
Oh, boy.
Why did you want a street bob? Because I know that before you ever bought your first bike, the street, you wanted a street bob. Was that all because you had gone up to a Harley dealership and you had sat on a street bob? Or was that due to your research, your in-depth research that you do?
To be completely honest with you, the entire reason I wanted a street bob is because, number one, when I think of a motorcycle, I just naturally go to a Harley, because that's what a motorcycle is to me, at least when I heard it. And a street bob is just the way that a motorcycle should look in my head. And all the other ones looked, different. They had the big bat wing fairings on them, or they were these little tiny, bikes or whatever, but just the street
Sportsters.
Bob. Exactly. Sportsters, fill in the blanks, whatever. But the street bob was just a bike that looked like a motorcycle should, in my opinion, was the right size of a motorcycle, in my opinion, and just everything about it was, well, a motorcycle, in my opinion.
All right, yeah. I've always wondered that myself, but...
Well, there's the answer to the universal question.
Oh, see, it only took a podcast for us to know.
Only took a podcast.
I was going to say, I don't know if I finished my story on how I got my second bike.
Yes.
Long story short, I sat on a new Harley, and that was the end of it.
I remember calling him, and we were talking about something, and he was saying about he's getting a new bike, and next thing I know, he's like, "Oh, we're just talking numbers right now," and I'm like, "Jesus Christ." He got you too, right?
He totally got me. Yeah, he got me good. Because I was like, "Nah, I can't afford a new bike," and I had actually recently just paid off my street because I didn't want to pay the interest. I don't have that good credit. Harley will work with you if you want a bike. They will work with you. You might
work on you.
They'll work on you. Yeah, it will be. Exactly. It'll be a work on for sure. But they'll get you a bike. The APR will suck, but no matter what, they'll get you a bike. I think that's actually how he got his first bike, was also a credit issue. I know with my street, that was the only bike that I could get with my credit score. But ironically, it was the bike I wanted.
True story.
They were trying to put me on a Sportster because I was a new rider. And, a lot of times they put anyone on a Sportster. That's like the classic new Harley, new biker Harley to get as a Sportster. They're big enough to do anything, but they're also small enough and nimble enough where you won't lay this big heavy thing down. They're easy enough to control. They're nimble enough to steer and ride. So long story short, when I'd first gone to Harley, long before I got my second bike, I'm sorry I'm bouncing between subjects here, but they wanted to put me on a Sportster, and they let me sit on my Sportster, and I'm like, no, I want the street like my buddy. I kept telling him, I want the street 750. That's the bike I want. They're like, well, let's put you on. The other thing about bike salesmen, they will totally take you to other avenues than what you want because, they're there to sell you a bike. So they were trying to put me on all these kind of Sportsters and stuff, and it was funny when they actually did my credit check. They're like, well, the only thing you qualify for is a street, and they had a real sad look on their face. I'm like, that's all I wanted was in the first place.
That's all I want in life. I don't know why you're sad. Maybe because you can't sell me a lot of money that I don't have.
Exactly. They were sad for the lost commission. I was secretly grinning because that's all I want in the first place. So I got my bike I wanted that made me interested, or helped make me interested, reawaken my interest in bikes, and same kind of bike that my best friend had, and also that I had sat on and did a little riding. You actually let me do a little riding on your first bike.
Very true.
Which is big because, a Harley, they start at $10,000.
Exactly. And of course, this one, back in the day, I think now they're not even called the streets. They're called like the street rods or something like that. Yeah. I don't even know. I've lost interest in the lower models of the street.
The street is not to be confused with the street rod. The street rod looks like this dirt bike crotch rocket wannabe thing that has no comfort whatsoever. The street has medium controls, as I said, except for being a big guy, it's a comfortable bike. It's solid. It's got a little shorter frame than a Sportster, but it's wider. I think it handles well. It's got that 750 they put in that thing, which is one of those that they build in Kansas City. That's the only place they built streets is in the Kansas City plant, and it has plenty of power. But unfortunately, no 6 gears, so they kind of suck on long rides on the highway.
Exactly, and when you're trying to ride with a riders group, and you try to, everybody's going from 0 to 70 in the snap of a finger, and you're like, hold on, guys, I'm coming. Just wait. I'll be there in a minute. It'll be okay.
Or getting blown over by semis, right?
Oh yeah, that was fun. The first time I ever rode on the highway was. And I went 70 miles an hour on my bike. It was during the absolute windiest day. I want to say that the wind gusts were up to like 60 miles an hour or something like that. And everybody's like, we finally get to the place that we're getting at, and I'm trying to be all cool, calm, and collective because I didn't want to, make it look like, oh my God, I almost died.
You just got beat the up by the wind.
Exactly. Anyway, we get to the place, and I am, like I said, very stone-faced, like I am about 99% of the time anyway.
This man wears a poker face as normal.
I have the best poker face in the world. Thank you very much. So we get there, and everybody's like, oh my God, how are you doing? I was like blown over almost. I thought I was going to lose my bike. And of course, these guys have like ultra glides and, street glides and basically fill in the blank glides. and I've got a little street 750, and I'm more cool and calm and collected than they are. Of course, my hands are shaking, and long story short, I didn't eat much because we went to a barbecue joint, and I'm just basically there like, all right, well, I didn't die, so that's good. So
he didn't die. I'm not gonna die. I'm not gonna die.
Not going to die. So I didn't, and that was all well and good. So moving forward, like he said, he had the Heritage. So
that's the second bike I bought after I sat on it, and really it was the it was time for me to get a bigger bike. I had learned to ride on the smaller street, and I started sitting on bigger bikes. And ironically, I was at another dealership a couple months before that, and the salesman walked up to me. We were just talking because the salesman always talk to you. He's like, "You should buy a Heritage Softail." I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, "Yeah." You just looking at you and your frame and your size, that's the bike that would fit you best. I didn't even sit on one at the other dealership, but the guy was super nice, and I told him my situation. I'm like, "Well, I got the Street. I really like it. I'm about to pay it off, but I just don't want another new bike, money, because, once you buy a bike, there's all kinds of fees involved, plus you lose equity in it as soon as you drive it off the lot." So I was not looking to get another bike. But, it was nice that he had put that on my mind. You should ride a Heritage Softail. So when I went up to the dealership, my actual salesman had me sit on some new bikes. He had me sit on Heritage, and lo and behold, it was true. The Heritage was the perfect bike for me. It just fit me. The handlebars were in a great place. The floorboards were in a perfect spot. It was low enough to the ground where I could just set my feet down. I didn't have to stretch my legs out at all. The nice big bucket seat was perfect for my nice big bucket. Everything. It was a bike that truly just fit Carl. They must make those for Carls. I don't know. Yeah,
very important. Like I've stated before, if you're going to buy a bike, I highly recommend, and this is actually getting a little ahead in the questionnaires, but it's okay because I'll just talk about it again. Most important thing you can do is sit on the bike that you're thinking about getting.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the one thing, like I've stated before, that I never did with my first bike. But it's okay, because the first bike I owned was not the bike I wanted. As a matter of fact, it was the bike I didn't want. But I've already stated this before. This is not about me. So moving forward, now that we've talked about bikes, quick little question here. This is a fun one usually. What kind of bikes do you really want? Like, what is your dream garage if you had to build one? And we'll put a cap and say maybe like 4.
Well, the answer to the question I already determined was all of them.
All of them,
all of them. I want all the bikes.
What kind of bike do you want? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. That is the answer to the question. I love motorcycles, and I don't care. I'm sure you're the same way. Man, you got 2 wheels, you're okay in my book. I don't care what you ride. I'll even talk to crotch rocket guys. I'll listen to their advice because YouTube videos, there's a lot of good YouTube videos out there. But there's a lot of guys who are crotch rocket guys who are out there trying to teach you how to ride a bike. Hey, man, I'll listen to their advice.
That's how I learned how to ride, to be completely honest with you. I watched videos of guys riding sport bikes because, well, usually they've got the better setup, with the full face helmets and all that good stuff.
Yeah, they can get that moto gear and all that, and GoPros and stuff.
Exactly. So I learned how to ride. Well, I learned the theories on how to ride from watching YouTube videos of guys who ride sport bikes. So I'm totally there with you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care if you ride 2 wheels, you're okay with me. The 3-wheel guys are okay, but the 3 wheels got to be in the back, not the front. You're not welcome. You
don't want the snowmobile with a birth defect.
Exactly.
So what kind of, like, if you had the ability to buy a second, if not third bike, what kind of bike would you, because I think I already know what your second bike would be.
Yes.
But
yes,
what would go ahead and tell what the second bike is, but I would like to know what the third, maybe even fourth bike would be.
Well, the next bike I want is a chopper. So, and that's why I'd actually bought the Heritage. If you guys don't know, Softails are pretty big bike that they actually chop up and modify. There's all kinds of modifications available for them, and Heritage, like the Softail Deluxe, has a lot of chrome on it. So when I had actually bought the bike, one of the other reasons I bought the Heritage, besides the way it felt, was all the chrome. And I'm like, okay, someday I can pull off these studded bags with 50% less studs, and I can chop this thing up and do all kinds of alterations to it. So that's still my plan, kind of. Well, I'm definitely going to do, over the years, there's all kinds of modifications. I'm going to do the Heritage. I don't ever plan to get rid of this Heritage. I love it. And it's the last model with the 103 on it. But I'm either going to chop it up completely, rake out the front end, put totally different kind of bars on it, or put a big fat tire on it. May have to get a new back part of the frame for a 200 or 240 back wheel. Or I'm going to keep it as my kind of touring model, and then I'll actually just buy a chopper. So definitely the next bike I want is to figure out how to get myself my nice long forked, beautiful cone-shaped headlight, lots of chrome. I want this thing to look mean. This is going to be my sports car.
Exactly. And I'm fully there with you on the chrome part. That's the cholo in me that just wants everything to be chrome. As a matter of fact, my bike came with a bunch of blacked out parts, and I was very, very annoyed because I've spent I don't know how many hundreds of dollars so far trying to turn everything from the blacked out to chromed.
He has no chrome. I have all the chrome.
Exactly.
I don't always care about the chrome, but this man needs chrome in his life.
I need chrome. My engine's black. I hate that. It's very unimmersive. I don't like it.
That's just cheap of Harley to do, really.
It really is. They knew I was going to buy that. They're like, you know what? Let's just going to take all the chrome out of it for this dude. That'd be great.
Without luck, they probably did the previous model, but hey, you never know.
Exactly.
Chopper, and I'm kind of actually at an impasse. I don't know if this will help segue into any other subjects, but I'm at an impasse in my riding style. I love my Softail, and I put the most miles on a bike with the Softail, but I don't know if I want a touring. Tourings just seem a little heavier and a little, I don't know, they're just a little too big, or I don't have that long leg, so even though I'm a bigger guy, I don't know if I'm ever going to get a touring or not. So really my next thing is to discover if I really want a touring model of bikes. Those are street glides, road kings, or if I'm really always going to stick with Softails.
Well, remember that Haas, the littlest dolphin, also rides the biggest bike. He has a Road King. No, not Road King. He has a Road Glide.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful bike. I like Road Glides. I like Road Glides for the fixed fairing. The fairing's fixed to the frame on a Road Glide, and so when you get hit by wind, the whole bike takes it instead of your handlebars and your shoulders take the weight. So Road Glides are great in their concept, even though they don't exactly look the coolest.
Very true. I'm not a big Road Glide fan myself. I wouldn't mind owning a Road King, but Road Glide in and of itself, I don't like the fairing look. It looks too old. I don't know how to describe it. It's not my jam. Let's just put it that way. Not my jam at all.
Well, if you want 2 headlights, you have a car, right?
Exactly. And who the hell wants to drive a car?
So
90% of America.
Yeah, exactly. If only more Americans rode bikes, it would probably be safer for bikers.
The more you know.
Man, I just love all bikes, and I don't know if I'm going to get myself a touring model later or stick with Softails. Definitely going to get me a chopper. Man, there's so many beautiful bikes out there, and I would have no problem owning some foreign ones, too. There's a lot of great foreign bikes out there, and hell, maybe even an Indian, if it's good enough for Indian Larry, it's good enough for me.
I couldn't do an Indian. I don't like the way they look. They look like an older Heritage. It's like an old floppy grandpa. It just doesn't look very good.
With brown bags.
With brown bags in a brown seat. I know I've said this before. I can't get into Indians. They're just not my thing. I will say though, the most comfortable bike I ever sat on was a Victory cross country, and it was up in Nebraska.
Oh man, Victory!
And I almost was convinced to talk, at very least, to the guy about Yeah, and see, this is the guy who's like, you should have done it. Should have done it.
I was there.
Every 5 minutes. Should have done it.
I was like, just do it. Just talk to the guy. It won't hurt anything.
Yeah. Oh boy. Anyway, so I've stated that before once or twice. So okay, yeah. So I just actually kind of learned something a little bit, because I honestly thought you were going to say the second bike that you wanted to own was your Street 750 back again. So I kind of got.
I want that bike. That's like and I don't want just any 750. I want my 750 back. I still have the second key. Don't tell anyone.
So PSA, he does not have the second key. Don't worry if you have a Street 750 that just shows up missing. It was not Great Carlito here.
It was not me, especially if it may not have come from Missouri, Kansas area.
Exactly, or the Metropolitan.
But that brings me a good point with the Victory. Man, I sure wish Victory was still around.
That makes two of us. I mean, I never rode one, but I love the way that they looked, and that, like I said, it was comfortable. It was the best comfortable bike I've ever. Everything with my feet were where they needed to be, my arms were where they needed to be, everything was where I needed to be.
We kind of came to biking at a bad time. I mean, we come to biking, and like most Americans, we buy a Harley. 50% of all bikes on the road are Harleys. But if I had just known a little sooner, or know that Victory would go out of business, I'd totally bought a Victory.
Very true. I mean, technically, for those wondering, we could buy Victories right now, but the problem with that is that I believe it was 3 to 4 years ago, as right now, at the time of recording, that they actually went under. So therefore, we have about a year to 2 years left of actual physical parts that we can purchase. And then we have another additional 5 years after that of... Wait, excuse me. I got that mixed up.
Warranty, right?
No, so the first... Okay, so they said if you bought a Victory, you get like 5 years where they'll actually work on it for you. Mm-hmm. And then you have 10 years to where you can buy parts. So 1 to 2 more years where the people who made Victory, which is Polaris, will actually work on the bike. Yeah. But you have 5 more years after that passes that you can still purchase parts that are not aftermarket parts.
Wow. So unfortunately, we're looking at like 6 years of available OEM parts left.
Exactly.
It's just too bad. And really, Victory was right under Harley. I've recently been looking at Consumer Reports. Took me a second to think there. Consumer Reports on bikes. Harley consistently stays. They do a consumer report like every 2 years. Harley stays consistently at like the number 4 spot. Right under Harley on the number 5 spot, and about a 2% less. I'm sure you're going to get some fact checkers out there, and please go look at Consumer Report, because that's something to look at when you're buying a bike. But Victory is right underneath Harley, and Indian, little note right there, Indian's not even on the list, or the top 5. Yeah, and Victory just, they went under, or I think they got Victory and Indian both got bought out by Polaris, and Polaris decided to keep Indian. If I understand, that's how the story works, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, Victory and Indian were both owned and manufactured, whatever have you, by Polaris. So they basically stated, more or less, you'd have to Google this actual story, but I'm pretty sure the way it goes is that Victory was not selling as much as Harley or something to that effect. So instead of, canceling Indian, they figured, well, Indian's the longer, has more name stake. It's been around longer. So they're going to cancel the Victory line and to focus more on the the Indian side of things. So that's kind of how that happened. And actually, interesting little side fact, the Hells Angels, at least Sonny Barger of the Hells Angels he was from the Oakland chapter of Hells Angels. He actually said that Victory was the way that Hells Angels were going to go bike wise. And then unfortunately, a couple months after he stated that is when Victory went out of business. But also fun little fun fact about the fun little fun fact, if that makes any sense. Is that he was also quoted and stating at one point of time that, I'm going to mess his words up, so you'd have to actually Google this direct quote, but something to the effect of, and I say that because I actually have respect for the guy, He basically said something to the effect of he thinks that at one point of time they missed the ball on, stating that you can only ride American-made motorcycles because there are a lot of metric motorcycles out there that, just are equally as good and they require less work. Something to that effect. You'd have to Google the actual quote, but I thought it was a little fun fact since we're talking about victory. Anyway, I cut you off, so please.
No, that's a good point. And really, that's the problem. I mean, Indian's been around as long or longer, and I think a little longer than Harley Davidson. They were actually a motorcycle company when good old William and Arthur were just building bikes out of that little shed.
I believe Indian was 1901, Harley was 1903, I think. Yeah.
And I mean, there's been other American companies that have come and gone, but unfortunately, it's America. Here we are. And yet, I mean, Harley's one of the few that have stuck around. That's a good point. As much as we rag on dealerships, and Harley, even now, I think we were just talking about that yesterday with the Milwaukee 8. I mean, they're screwing some people over that are having warranty issues because the new engine, the Milwaukee 8, for the touring models has been in there for 3 years, and for the rest of the line, which are all Softails now, have been there for 2 years, and people are just coming up on their factory warranty. You get 2 years on a brand new bike. And there's been reports of guys getting screwed over with I think it's the gaskets blowing and stuff leaking, parts leaking into the metal fragments or oil leaking into the piston and even destroying the pistons and the cylinders. So yeah, I mean, and it's too bad that there's so few American companies, and the ones that are out there have to do some dirty things just to stay afloat.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of interesting stories I hear about the Milwaukee 8. Some of it's good, kind of. Some of it's bad. But I think it's with anything, really. Your mileage may vary. Just my own personal research has kind of come up with a lot of negative things. But like I said, your mileage may vary. You may be out there, listening right now, and you may have a bike that has a Milwaukee 8 in it, and you're like, I don't know what these guys are talking about. They're idiots. Well, like I said, your mileage may vary, and I'm glad you haven't had any problems with it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, hey, stay on the road as long as you can, brother.
Rubber side down.
Rubber side down. Yes.
Exactly. So we went off on a tangent, which, like we stated, we do that all the time. So welcome to our worlds.
Or wake up.
One of the two. So let me go ahead and move on with this. So I'm going to ask this in a double question because, well, I can.
Don't worry, you'll probably get a triple answer.
Probably will. We'll do another, 3-hour answer. So what are some of your favorite rides that you have done? And as a secondary question, what are some of the rides that you would love to take? Like, for a quick example, I would love to eventually sometime take the Tail of the Dragon.
Oh, man, yeah. I hadn't even thought about that. I was going to say rides, we got to go to Sturgis. We have to do it.
Everybody's got to go to Sturgis at least once.
Oh, yeah. And I'd love to go to Daytona. There's also... I can't remember the name of it. This shows my lack of years inside the biker culture, but there's a big, down in Kansas, there's a big kind of bike rally down there they have. If you think about chime in. But yeah, I mean, there's even stuff close to home, because we're in the Kansas City metro area, or I'm somewhat outside of it. And, man, gotta go to Sturgis. There's all kinds of places I want to ride. I mean, I want to do my Iron Butt, get my 1,000 miles in 24-hour period. I'd love to do more, but man, that's a lot of riding. I'm sure the guys out there who have done it, and my hats off to you, because I love riding my bike, but trying to get like the 5,000 mile in 4 days, or the Four Corners one where you go to 4 corners of the United States, one of each 4 corners of the United States. That's a heck of a lot of riding. There's some great places I want to go, and I mean the rides I've done are smaller. A couple rides with my Legion. We did a poker run for a ROTC unit there, and mostly I think about 12 people. That's pretty small, I know, for a bike group ride, but that's about the biggest group ride I've been on. And I mean, I just still kind of new to bike riding. I just want to do as big a ride as possible with good riders. I mean, unfortunately, sometimes you get some pretty wild guys, or it's when they want to stop at all the bars along the way that can get a little dangerous.
Or a little ridiculous. Or you just have the people who don't understand, throttle control.
Yeah, exactly. Which we should definitely put that into the advice for the new rider section.
Exactly. Throttle control. Don't ride your brake. Learn how to do throttle control. It'll be your friend.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be just on or off. It's a throttle. It's got a lot of space in between. A lot of twisting room.
Precisely.
So, but yeah, and the ride, man, I tell you what, that ride for Aiden was great. For a little ride, it was for 10 of us, and we were, you can give the history or how the whole thing happened because you were in conjunction with the leader of it, but just an experience of this ride for Aiden, man. We ended up being on this small ride that was supposed to be bigger, but a lot of people pussied out because it rained that morning, even though we went in the afternoon. And there was the 10 of us, or about, I think it was a 10.
It was 10. It was a very small ride, like you stated. So quick backstory for those who familiar with it, because I know I've mentioned it, but I haven't really given backstory to it. So, long story short, what the ride for Aiden is it was a ride for a family in Nebraska, up just north of here. That of course, if you look at a map, you'll know that Nebraska is north of here.
Yeah,
but
in Omaha, northwest.
It was actually Lincoln. But,
was it Lincoln?
I thought it was Lincoln.
Oh, so we rode to Omaha.
we rode to so we rode to Lincoln. We ended up in Omaha because we went to the restaurant that I wanted to eat food at, and they didn't have my food, so I boycotted.
By sitting there and watching me eat a plate of chicken, and him not eating anything.
It really did. They you know what? They wouldn't serve me my goddamn buffalo mac and cheese when they totally could have, and they decided not to. So.
And then the bartender was like, "Oh well, I'm sure I can convince the cook to make it." And then he was like, "No." She came back like, "Well, the cook won't make it after all, even though he knows how."
Exactly. So if you were a cook at the oh my god, what was that name of the place? The Quaker Steak and Lube. If you were a cook at the Quaker Steak and Lube about 2 years ago, and you told me no, you.
We should have stole that FXR that was hanging on the wall.
I know, right? So anyway,
we're coming for your FXR, dicks.
Right, exactly. So anyway, we it was a benefit ride for this kid who, more or less, he was getting off the bus, the school bus, and some idiot decided to come barreling down and actually hit him. And I can't remember right now if they actually ran him over, but I know they hit him, and he got pretty screwed up and had to go, in for surgeries and obviously, lots of stuff like that, medical wise.
There was a lot of worries about brain issues or brain damage, right?
Exactly. There was worries about, brain damage. Exactly. And so basically his family couldn't afford the medical bills naturally. So a good friend of the family decided to put together this benefit ride because they have been, a part of the biker culture as well for, I don't know how long they have been, but just to move forward, they've been part of the biker culture for, a little while. So they decided to get together, and they got a bunch of other people to come together, and it kind of turned into, like I said, a benefit ride. And the whole plan was we were going to get a bunch of people to come down. It was going to be somewhere around the Lincoln, Nebraska area. And it was going to be stated as a couple hundred bikes. And I mean, we went out there, we looked at the place, and everything looked great. And
went out to a local park or a local, like a state park area, and had a whole setup area where everyone could meet. And
yeah, it was like a lake or something, if I'm not mistaken.
Lake, right.
But yeah, so we went out there and everything was great. And we went to bed that night thinking, this is going to be great. It's going to be a big epic event. Well, unfortunately, we wake up in the morning and we ride out there. Yeah. And, number one, we thought it was going to rain. So we brought all of our rain gear. What rain gear we had, which was, basically just more leather.
Yeah, exactly. No life to leather.
So anyway, we go out there and it wasn't raining, so we didn't bring all the rain gear, just a couple things. And we go out there, and we showed up, and we were the only 2 riders there. And, then eventually other people came, and we're like, okay, well, maybe they're just waiting. So, it literally turned into, long story short, it turned into a, where is everybody? Where is everybody?
Yeah.
So, long story short.
Wait, are they coming? Is anyone else coming?
Exactly. Out of the 200 to 300 people that were supposed to show up, I think maybe including us, there was only 10 bikes.
Yeah.
So, it unfortunately turned out to be a flop. However,
yes.
Aiden still came out. The family still came out. We still showed our support. We still went out on the ride. Everybody was extremely grateful that we came out and, did some support. We donated some cash to them because,
Yep.
I'm sure in some way, shape, or form we've been in the way where we need a little bit of extra help. So, and we could at the time. So therefore we, was able to donate a little bit. So that was all well and good.
Yeah, and first off, like you said, Aiden was there, and man, I tell you what, if you would have saw this kid running around and checking out all the bikes, you would never have known that he had been hit by a car.
Yeah, he was super excited to see all the bikes. I forget who it was. They're like, so which bike you want to sit on? He pointed to like 2 or 3. He sat on all the bikes he wanted to sit on. Nobody cared. He can sit on any bike he wants to.
Yeah.
Get his picture taken. He was really keen on this one bike, which I'm not going to lie, it really was a cool looking bike.
It was one of the coolest cross rockers I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was like a big, long sports bike.
Yeah.
And it was black and green, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Like black with green, not stripes, but I don't know, just green accents, if you will. It actually was a pretty cool looking bike. But
he had like a frame extension kit on this thing. So that thing, like, imagine a super long
sport bike.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just really long sport bike. That's from what I remember. And actually, fun fact: if you go to the Psychoz World Facebook page and you scroll to some of the first-ish posts that I have on there, I actually have a couple. I want to say it's a couple pictures and a couple videos. So I don't know if you're interested in that. Like I said, go to the Psychoz World Facebook page. Check that out if you're interested and just kind of want to see what that was. But anyway, getting back to it, like I said, it turned out to unfortunately be a flop, and everybody was like, "Oh, I'm sorry you came all this way for nothing." It was like, you know what? It was great. It was a fun ride. It was a great ride there. We had a great ride while we were there. It was actually it was extremely enjoyable ride. I don't know about you.
Oh no. Well, I mean, we had speaking of the biker culture they were involved in, the grandpa was, man, real cool old hippie biker guy, right?
Right.
Dude loves to ride. He invited us to smoke some, after we got done with the ride. Dude was cool. He was all about it. He was all about bikes. I mean, he loved ours. He owned like 4 or 5 of them or something, long hair, totally hippie guy. I don't think he put a shirt on the whole time.
I mean, we're talking legitimately. If you picture Willie Nelson, in his slightly younger days,
slightly,
this is what this dude was.
And man, that guy took us on a ride. That's why I got the Omaha wrong, because we literally took a bike ride, a group ride from Lincoln to Omaha and all the way back.
Yeah, it was easily an hour ride.
Oh, no, it was like 2.5 hours, I think. It was long.
That's what I'm saying. It was literally like an hour plus ride, and then we got to the point, it was like, all right, let's go back. And I was like, okay, shit, let's go. So, yeah, we were out for a good almost probably 3 hours.
Yeah.
To where and that's where I heard the term that a good friend of ours stated. I learned the term ass migraines. So.
What was that? The girl that organized a ride?
Yeah, it was one of them. So, or the main one rather. But she actually, I want to say she rode on the back of that black and green sports bike, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, if I was on the back of a cross rocket.
Yeah. And then something to the effect of like she got off or whatever, and she's like, "Oh my god!" Then something to the effect of. She said the word ass migraines. I know that, and I remember laughing my ass off because it was quite funny.
Yeah, I'm sure she did, because that was a long ride, man. I don't think. The guy who was back to all the people who pussied out for this ride, it was a lot of crotch rocket guys, which I said, as I already stated, we don't hate on crotch rocket guys, but they were too afraid to ride because it had rained that morning. So the guy who was supposed to lead the ride, a bunch of people that were supposed to show up, they all pussed out. So that's when the grandpa stepped up, like, man, you guys want to go ride? Let's go ride. I'll take you on a ride. And we just went.
Exactly. We didn't even know where the hell we were going. Because like he just said, the guy who was, leading the ride canceled on us for, reasons, whatever. The hell with him. But, yeah, it was a good ride. It was one of the few rides that I've took that I could probably say was one of the best rides.
It was a great ride. And it was a group of, obviously, I think it was nice that we had an experienced group of riders, at least experienced enough. I mean, these weren't like guys that run their bike up and down the street once a month or go down to the strip to show off their speed and actually don't have any experience. I mean, these are guys who love to ride, and they actually knew about bikes. They knew their bike. And so to ride with a group that knew how to ride with the group and knew how to ride, that was a good experience.
Exactly. And if I'm not mistaken, we had, because I know we had the large majority of it was cruiser bikes. Yeah. And we had a small makeup majority of it was sport bikes, but I almost want to say, I could be very wrong, wasn't there an adventure bike out there too? Wasn't one of them like one of those adventure bikes?
It might have been. Honestly, I was still young enough with riding that I wouldn't know what an adventure bike was.
Picture a crotch rocket that looks like it has ammo cans on the side.
I've seen plenty of those from where I'm from. We have a big meth problem there.
Right. But no, I mean, yeah. Anyway, so adventure bikes. No, basically that's like the armor, I'm told, because I've actually listened to shows and watched shows where they talk about adventure bikes, and basically it's armor. And we can joke about HD stands for $100 all we want to. Well, a lot of these adventure bikes, you can almost turn it into a meme. You got, the Harley guys who's like, oh yeah, HD stands for $100. You see this throttle boss cost me $100. And then in the next picture, you see a guy who has an adventure bike and he's like, oh yeah, $100. That's it. That's cute. And he's just got all this armor on his bike.
Oh,
I mean, you need that kind of stuff if you're going to do the kind of riding that those guys do. So I totally get it.
Quick note, Harley is actually going to, I believe in this year, new model year, they're actually coming out with a adventure bike.
And you can learn more about that in previous episodes of Psychoz World. I'm pretty sure I actually touched on that. But no, yeah, he's very, very, very true.
But yeah, so I guess we can finish up on that. Great ride, experienced riders, guys who love to ride, and obviously were who cared enough about helping a kid out and their family to be there. And they made a little bit of money. I don't know, maybe a couple $100 or something like that. Thank God that kid didn't have any long-lasting damage, and he was healthy, running around. So at that point, we were there to kind of help a family that didn't have a lot of money, pay for a lot of medical bills that it took to save this kid's life and save him so he could actually just be a kid again.
Exactly. And if anybody is curious, the last time I spoke with anybody who was involved in there, I had asked about Aiden, and from what I'm told, he's still, doing quite well and being very much a young lad, like young lads should be. So he's doing okay. So that's all well and good.
So Aiden, we'll see you on the road in a couple years, buddy. Let's get you 2 wheels.
Exactly. Feel free to hit us up.
I'm sure he'll want 2 wheels after that experience.
Right. Exactly. So in closing of this, I'm going to throw this out there do you have any personal tips for anybody who might be thinking of writing or who's brand new to writing or anything that has to do with writing and not very experienced? Any kind of tips that you have personally found that has helped you out that might help somebody else out, no matter how weird it sounds to other people? Because I've thrown some stuff out there that I'm sure sounds weird to other people, but you know what? It helped me out. So is there anything that you can throw out there?
Well, I love that look that you tell a new rider or someone wants to ride. When you ask them what they know about counter steering, and you get that deer in the headlight look on their face. So that's always a good one.
And then you say the word centrifugal force, and then you literally see their head explode.
Exactly. It's like loading. But hey, real quick, on the way back from the ride for Aiden, going back to Kansas City, that's where you saw that victory that I almost made you buy.
That is where I seen the victory. That is very true. It was at Frontier Harley Davidson, which, quick side note, if you ever go out to Lincoln, Nebraska, and you're in the Frontier...
That's a great dealership.
Exactly. You're in the Frontier Harley Davidson dealership area. I highly recommend going in there because the thing is pretty much like a little mini museum.
Yeah.
It's 2 levels. It's really cool. And the owner, I believe, actually owns all the stuff that's in that little mini museum upstairs. So
yeah, that's his personal collection, but it got so big that he turned it into like a little museum, and it literally goes from the beginning of Harley all the way up to present day.
Exactly. It is very, very, very cool. He actually has a, what is that thing called? A Ladyfoot engine?
Yeah.
He has a Ladyfoot engine. So if you want to see one of the first engines that William H. Harley and Arthur Davidson created, well, mainly William Harley, but that's neither here nor there.
Right.
If you guys want to see one of the original engines that was put in those bikes way back in the day, that would be a good place to go see one, as well as other spots in the country.
And a Harley Davidson jet ski too, so that's pretty awesome.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I mean, new riding, man. Well, first thing is you never quit learning. When you're riding, I mean, you always can be working on your skills, revising your skills, revisiting. No, it's important to practice and keep up on your skills because, I mean, it's you and that bike, and you're literally against the world or against a lot of stupid drivers out there. I can't tell you how many people I've heard that have been lifelong riders, rid far longer than I have, and they're like, I don't want to ride anymore. There's too many stupid people in cars out there. But I would say, so just, practice the basics: braking, speed, throttle control, counter steering. Make that very intuitive. Because, I mean, once you go over about 20 miles an hour, you're not steering anymore. You're counter steering and leaning. It's important to know your bike, know how it handles. I mean, literally. And I'm guilty of this because, especially this summer with the weather, and last summer I had a small accident, which, I don't know, you can ask about it, but I may or may not tell you. Yeah, it kind of took me out of commission. So, I mean, I'm still learning, and I'm constantly learning how my bike reacts more and more, because you've got to know your bike. Every bike's different. Every model's different. Every manufacturer's different. The bike needs to become a part of you.
Exactly. Very, very wise words indeed. I can get behind just about everything you said there, especially the whole counter steering thing. I mean, like, legitimately, I had to watch several, and I quote, several YouTube videos just to understand the whole theory behind counter steering. And, well, once again, it took somebody on a sports bike to actually finally say the words that I needed personally for it to actually, sink in, and so where I could actually understand it. So definitely do your research, and nothing wrong with going on YouTube and, listening to other people to get their input on how to do things. The smartest thing, and I've always said this, the smartest thing I ever heard from somebody actually came from one of the stupidest people that I've ever ran across.
So the little gyms could be anywhere.
Pretty much. But no, they basically said, learn how to do something in several different ways, because one guy doesn't always know the best way to do things. So if you learn how to do things several different ways, you can come to something with several different ways to tackle the problem, as opposed to just one way that may or may not work.
Oh, yeah.
Which was probably some of the best advice that I've heard. Now, he was talking about contracting, but this can go for any facet of anything in life.
Yeah.
But he was also one of the stupidest people I've ever run across. So, yeah, that's all he's got to say, for himself, and that'll be the only thing written on his tombstone when he passes. So,
thanks for the good advice.
Exactly. Thanks for the good advice. You should have learned how to cut for Micah a little bit better. So anyway, that's all I've got. And if you got anything to close out with, I'll just go ahead and close it off here. You got anything to throw out there? Final thoughts, if you will.
No, I just, speed kills, as they said in my HD riding class. Any idiot can go fast in a straight line. It's actually knowing how to maneuver the bike that matters. So remember, speed kills, and, braking's important. Not grabbing the front brake or slamming on the brakes, but slowly, steadily applying pressure in a quick manner, but, it's all about gradual pressure. Usually you want to start with the rear and then go to the front. Another tip I can give is going into a turn. It's called trail braking. You can lightly press on the front brakes to get the front brakes of your bike to collapse, therefore making the geometry of your bike shorter, and it will make it handle better. Because the longer the bike, the worse it handles. And that's also why choppers with those long forked front ends, they handle worse in turns. So next time you're out there riding, if you don't already apply this skill, try to give yourself a little front brake going into the turn and then release the brake. And then, of course, use your throttle past the apex of your turn to accelerate out of the turn. Remember, it's braking going in, throttle coming out. But stay on that front brake just a little bit going into the turn. It'll keep your front fork collapsed. It'll keep your weight on your front tire. It'll help you handle better. That also could be a great thing in an emergency situation where you really have to turn quickly or make a maneuver because, man, things pop out on the road on you all the times.
Exactly. Wise words from great Carlito. So.
Well, not great for any reason.
Exactly. So with all that being said, that's going to kind of do it for us. So, Lito, I appreciate you coming on to the show here and having a little chat with me, and hopefully we can get you back on for another one sometime.
Oh, yeah. Hey, look forward to it. We can talk about maybe my other passions besides bikes and sleeping, It'll be fun.
Exactly. We've always got eating, too. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Eating, beer, anything dolphins like, and I know about the dolphins, too.
Speaking of beer, you should come back sometime. We can get Merlin on here, too, and we can all three talk about, beer and beer brewing and beer drinking and just, beer.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Him as a brewer, and me as someone who have sold a lot of beer to people in my career, and also have drank a lot of beer in my stomach.
As one does. So all that being said, once again, thank you for coming on. We'll get you back for another one.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And as for this, I'm going to stop talking so I can do the thing. Like I said before. The thing, exactly. So like I said
Not
before.
Not just anything.
Things. Godspeed. Remember the Alamo. All right, guys. That is going to do it for me on this episode. I want to thank you very much for tuning in this week, and I also want to re-thank the great Carlito for coming and having a little chat with me. Remember, you can catch the show on Thursdays free on any of your favorite podcast providers. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, just to name a few. I'm practically everywhere. Follow me on Twitter. I'm at PsychoQuirk420. Like my Facebook page. Search at Psychoz World. Send any show questions, comments, or concerns to matt@psychozworld.com. And please be sure to note the show number in the email and or subject line. Remember, Psychoz World is spelled with a Z, not an S. Leave me a message on the new voicemail line, 816-286-4437. If you enjoy what I'm doing here and would like to show me some support, you can do so by becoming a patron through Patreon. As a matter of fact, just like great Carlito did, which I greatly appreciate. If you love the show even more, you can also show your support by checking out the Psychoz World shop and grabbing yourself some Psychoz World gear from the podcast. Heads up though, shirt sizes do run small, so I would recommend getting a size bigger than what you normally wear. For all this information and any additional resources, please be sure to check out psychozworld.com. I will catch you all on the next one. Thank you very much again for listening, and I'm out.